You're listening to Transcaster Radio, a podcast about trans life and all that goes along with it. You can listen to the show anywhere you enjoy podcasts, and we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review. It helps us reach more people, and we greatly appreciate it. Now, here's your host, Caden Taylor.
Hey Transcasters, and welcome to this week's episode of Transcaster Radio. I'm your host, Caden Taylor. This week we have two great guests for you from Salon Benders out of California. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I am Cal Biggery, and I am the co-founder of Salon Benders.
And I am Jessica Santiago, and I am the other co-founder.
Also
So let's start out with how Salon Benders. Tell me about Salon Benders. I mean, I know, but the listeners don't know about Salon Benders. So let's talk about what Salon Benders is all about.
Great. So Salon Benders is a community-driven hair salon in Long Beach, California, that specializes in serving the queer, trans, and allied community. So we believe in doing fierce hair and aiding the expression of our clients, and we also have a model where we have kind of a community drop-in element, so folks can come and go and make themselves feel right at home. And we do serve everybody, but our space is specifically designed to make queer and trans folks feel at home. Yeah.
All right. What, how did you, who's the one who was cutting hair first?
That would be me.
Big time.
Yeah, I've been cutting hair for 2 decades this year.
Wow, long time.
Yeah, very long time. I've been doing hair since I was basically graduated high school already kind of in the industry. So.
Okay. So
yeah.
Did.
Still looks like she's 21.
Nah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Thank you. It's all makeup.
So whose idea was it to start Salon Benders?
It was really a collaboration and kind of a journey. I will say, I mean, I can kind of share where I was coming from, but it was this really beautiful meeting of two different forces who were at different places in their lives coming together and finding some really amazing solid ground to create this. So from my side, I had been in education and community engagement for the last 12, 13 years. And I was finding myself pretty burnt out and struggling a little bit, working in the nonprofit sector and educational sector, and finding a lot of amazing community resources being underfunded, under-resourced, susceptible to grant turnover. So they would have a great staff that was trained really well, and then the grant would run out. They would lose the people and have to find somebody else and maybe have the time and resources to train them, or maybe not. So I really just kind of felt like I had been treading water in a lot of ways, and was not getting what I wanted. So I found myself at a bit of an impasse, and kind of was hanging with Jesse and licking my wounds, and having a job that just got me a paycheck and from point A to point B. Yeah. And then Jesse was kind of at a similar, maybe you want to share kind of what led it. Yeah.
So that was his journey. And at the same time, I had been working as a hairstylist in pretty affluent community that was serving, I actually didn't have any people of color. I was only serving pretty wealthy white women and in a very affluent community in Manhattan Beach, California. And I had basically been doing that type of hair in a boutique salon that was really, really high-end hair, but was also just kind of serving just one small community. And I think that I started to get a little bit worn down and run down by being in serving a community that I didn't really have anything in common with anybody that I was doing. And so like when I would tell people like, yeah, I'm queer, or like, this is what it's like to be Puerto Rican, or this is what it means, the fact that I have a transgender boyfriend, like it was always this like huge conversation all the time, which I felt really blessed to have like beautiful clients. I really had some amazing clients that were interested in my journey and were interested in Cal, but there was also still a part of me that was like kind of feeling very tired and worn down and kind of sad all the time, because I felt like I wasn't doing good in my own community. And then I felt like I didn't have much community at all. I was making this huge commute. I was tired all the time. And I just kind of felt like I had hit this like rock bottom in my industry, that I just like had done everything that I could possibly do. And I wasn't being stimulated and I wasn't being challenged at all. And so I kind of would come home almost every day, just really like kind of complaining about my job to Cal. Like, I just feel unfulfilled. I don't feel like I'm doing any good in this world. And so from there, it was kind of like a cry for out of desperation for both of us. I think we were just really like, we both really wanted to serve the LGBT community in some way. We wanted more community ourselves. And we were looking around like, does anybody do queer hair? Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that do queer hair, but is there anybody that's saying like, we are queer, we are in the community, and we are speaking the same language? Like, is there anyone that does that? And from here to LA, there was only one other place, and that was like deep, deep, deep in LA. And at the time it looked more like they were like a masculine of center space. But I couldn't find, out of all of the market research that we did, we could not find one like kind of like queer space that was doing community stuff and doing hair. And so we just kind of like jumped off the edge and we're like, let's do it.
Well, it was like we both reached this impasse, and I think it kind of came out, but I identify as a white man of trans experience, and I wanted to continue to work in my community in ways that could be more sustainable. And there was this industry, so we could hopefully do amazing hair to keep the lights on and the doors open. Mm-hmm. And not only that could serve as a venue for community events, workshops, social support, but also we could really change the game in terms of community resources by truly putting excellence first. We're firm believers that marginalized communities don't deserve marginal services, and that when marginalized people are able to encounter excellence and have opportunities of excellence, they are then more capable of bringing more excellence into their lives and communities.
And whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I live in a very conservative area in Florida. And for me, hair has always been a way to express myself. But when I was younger and I identified as a lesbian, I got a lot of hate and backlash on having my hair a certain way. And I remember going into places to get my hair cut when I identified as a female, and it was, oh, do you really want to cut your hair like that?
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
Oh,
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got all my hair cut off, and the lady was like, "Are you serious?" And at that time, I was going to be going into the military, and so I just wanted it all gone, and I had always wanted it gone. And my grandma, after I got my hair cut, said, "Just because you're a lesbian doesn't mean you have to look like a dyke." And I'll never forget that. And it's like, first off, that is such a bad connotation of what a dyke is, which is not true at all. And then you were just and so going to get my hair cut has always been hard. And I recently found a place that is extremely masculine oriented towards straight cis men, but the lady that I go to get my hair cut is very queer friendly, and she knows I'm trans. Some of my friends go, but it's a weird, I love her and I'll continue to go there, but it's a weird place to go because I've never gotten to the point in my transition, at least not to this point, that I feel okay, completely okay in an all male cisgendered place establishment. So so getting my hair cut, needless to say, has always been a little tricky for me.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of like, I mean, that was really,
that's where you were at. That was your tipping point too.
Yeah, that was my tipping point, because like for Cal, he really came to me and he was like, look, you're doing amazing work. And like, I don't think that you actually realize where, like how much of a help and how much of an ally you are to the trans community. Like, you have this amazing ability and you have this amazing gift of doing hair. Plus you speak this language. You're like, I always found myself like queer adjacent or something, like, because I identified as a lesbian for most of my life, but then like fell in love with a guy and then continued to date men. So like, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not queer anymore. Like maybe that was just a phase. 11 years. I don't even know. But like,
long
so like,
phase.
so
yeah, that's a long phase.
I also have lesbian parents. And so like, I've always just been in the community, and it's never really been that big of a deal for me. Like, it's just always been very normal to be in the queer community, but I didn't feel like, I guess, quote unquote, queer enough to like serve queer and trans folks. And Cal was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're being crazy. Like, I just feel like I felt like I was able to serve the trans community, but I couldn't come at it from a perspective of like knowing what it was like to be trans.
Of course.
And I think that was really lovely to like, to say that to him, and for him to say like, you don't actually have to do that. Like, all you have to do is make someone feel comfortable in your chair, which you're already doing, and like do really good hair. And once I kind of like downloaded that and was like, I felt really confident and comfortable to be able to be a very strong ally. That's when I was like, okay, let's open the salon, because it really was like a lot of I was serving a lot of trans folks, but mostly trans feminine folks, but they didn't feel comfortable going into my hair salon during business hours.
Very similar to what you were sharing.
Basically your story, Kate.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I would stay late or see them after hours or see them on days that other people weren't there, so that they weren't being like gawked out. Because some of the trans feminine folks I was doing weren't reading as their
as their desired
as female. Yeah. I mean, and to me, I felt like it was just more damaging to be in a space like that. I mean, maybe not to them, but for me, I felt really embarrassed by my coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just was like, I felt like I was always like, I'm so sorry about that. Like, they just don't understand, or they don't know. And I don't know. It just was a really hard place to be queer affirming in a place that other people just didn't know. So, I mean, I feel for your hairstylist, actually. I really,
now that you say that and you talk about that, I kind of feel for her too, because it does put her in a kind of a predicament when, they make some shrewd comment.
Right.
And she's invited you into this space, and she really wants you to feel comfortable. And it's an intimate act, having your head touched and rubbed and giving somebody scissors next to your head and giving them permission to alter your appearance. The first thing that people ever know about you before you even utter your name. It's a lot of power.
Yeah.
And so we take it very seriously. And I think that became like something that was very heartening to Jessie. She's having these amazing connections with these powerful, wonderful women. And she's also like, God, there's a part of me that just feels heartbroken that we're having to like kind of sneak around or something, when this is something that is not something that
it's not a shameful act.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is like, we're not doing anything wrong here. We're existing, and these
basic
people
grooming.
are
Like, people are just taking
grooming.
care of themselves.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, this is not like, I just felt like this is not like, if you feel comfortable being visible, if you feel safe being visible, that is so important to me, because to me, it makes me feel like if I don't feel comfortable being out and proud in my community, every person that's ever lost their life and every person that has ever fought for our rights, we're not honoring them properly, like, in my opinion.
In your experience.
In my experience.
Right, in your experience.
I want to honor the people who have fought for my rights by being as visible as I possibly can. And obviously, I mean, I grew up in Virginia, Caden, so I hear what you're saying. I grew up in a very conservative town, being brown and being queer and having queer parents.
Oh my.
There is an element of that is not safe. There is an element of that you cannot say who you are. And so I'm not saying that if you're in a conservative town and you don't feel safe doing that, please don't, because that is, I mean, the most important thing is your safety.
Yeah.
But I have the privilege of doing that where I'm at in Long Beach and in California. And so for me, it's really important to do that for people like myself back in the day that couldn't.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. You pointed on the fact that you felt like you couldn't serve the queer community. And that's an interesting, it's something interesting to me that you say, because I think that happens a lot more than we think. That there are allies out there that don't think because they're not queer or part of the LGBT community that they can't serve that community. Have you run into other people that have felt that way?
Oh, yes, 100%. I feel like I hear the stories more than Cal does because he's trans. And people don't really know how to have this conversation with a trans person or with somebody who's like very visibly queer. I think that like I'm kind of like the Mr. Rogers of the queer folks. They're like, oh, you're friendly. I can talk to you about anything. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, so it's easy for people to kind of open up to me and talk about that, exactly this issue, what you're talking about. I hear it a lot. I hear it a lot in my clients. I hear it a lot surprisingly a lot from queer folks, people who are lesbian identified or like gay male identified, because I think it's mostly with non-binary and trans folks that people are kind of like still at, well, like there's still kind of like a lack of vocabulary, I guess, there, where people they don't know how to ask questions because they feel like if they do ask questions that it might be offensive.
Yes.
And so that they just don't ask at all. So they just kind of like try to normalize everything. Like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. They don't understand they, them pronouns or something like that, but they're just gonna like, instead of like talking and leaning into the discomfort respectfully, they're just not gonna do it at all.
It's like to be frank, like I was raised in a white family, a white community, and I was taught that the way to not be racist is to be colorblind and to not acknowledge race and just be very friendly. And like that, as we know, as we've gotten older, is erasure and is not acknowledging, very, very real dynamics, and that conversation and not sweeping things under the rug is actually the way to form allyship and connection. And I think that the same thing is happening within the trans community is people are just so friendly to me, and they're just trying to show me like, I know that you're trans and I still like you. I still like you. I definitely won't ask you anything or acknowledge that you're trans. Like I was taught, I will not acknowledge that you're Black or brown. And that has changed for me, living in a different place and having access to different experiences. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to do as well, is welcoming conversation from people and saying, it's fine. If you want to ask me or any other trans person in this space a question, we invite everyone to just have as much conversation as possible. And one of the ways we do this is we encourage, we don't call ourselves a safe space, we call ourselves a brave space, because it takes courage for most, it takes courage to be honest about ourselves, even when that honesty might be like, oh, you've asked me a question that makes me uncomfortable. And the honest answer is, I'm not comfortable answering that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not a safe space in terms of, there's all these connotations of like a safe space would mean no one's going to cross any boundaries or no one's going to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. Well, I don't know what makes you comfortable or uncomfortable, but we're going to ask you, everyone in this space, to be brave and tap into who
their
you are.
empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Tap into their what is your responsibility for your own thoughts, feelings, and emotional baggage that you come with. Every single one of us comes with
It's
a
all
story,
valid.
and everybody's story is valid. But it is impossible as a human being, even though I'm part of the queer community and I'm brown and my partner is trans and I quote unquote should be woke, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even still, at that point, I still don't know what kind of baggage you come with. I have no idea what your triggers are. And to be quite honest with you, it's impossible to know that ever with any person. So I think it's most important to teach and lead through empowerment and be someone who says, hey, if something bothers you, say it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to be met with aggression, and you're not going to be met with negativity. You're going to probably be met with compassion and a hug, and say, like, if you want a hug, and with consent, obviously, but just like, hey, you've done some amazing work just now, saying that you were uncomfortable with that question. Thank you so much for, holding a boundary, and I won't cross that line again. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to promote and share with not just our clients, but we're doing this podcast for a reason. You have access to all these people in Florida that we don't have access to. And just, if there is someone out there that has any questions or wants to be in community with us, you can do that through, the web these days, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
In fact, a little side thing, this is a really cool story. I have a friend who is a hairstylist back at home. And I have never met this person. Her hairstylist, or her friend, moved to North Carolina and somehow acquired all of these trans folks. And she's not trans competent at all, but she in fact, she's extremely Christian, Southern Baptist.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, but she is like a true believer in Christ's message of not love and acceptance and not to judge. And so I have never met this woman before, but she got my phone number, and I had an hour and a half conversation with her about how to be more inclusive to the trans folks in her community without Bible thumping, quote unquote. And she was like, I don't know how to talk about anything if it's not about religion and Jesus. But the lucky part was that I had grown up in a Southern Baptist town. So like I could actually speak her language and speak this language. And I was able to kind of bridge the gap for her. She sent me an email not too long ago and was like, girl, thank you so much for all of your information. It was so lovely. And that all of her clients have been like really noticing a big change in how they're feeling and how she's feeling. And they're just getting much closer. So I don't know. I thought that was really neat. And so if there is a stylist out there that is listening to this that wants to hear more, please contact me through Instagram at Salon Benders and just ask. I'm always down to have conversations like this.
I'll put that in the show notes and everything as well. So,
Thanks.
Sorry. I just want to say the approach of not using a safe space, but using a brave space, I think is fantastic. And we use safe space, and I understand the reasoning behind it, but empowering people, I think, is key to the queer community. And because I think a lot of times the queer people don't feel empowered. And I think by saying it's a brave space instead of a safe place is giving them the ability to be empowered, like you talked about. And so I give you guys credit for going in a different direction than what the quote unquote standard, queer community calls, a place that they feel safe.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's just about being able to recognize where our limitations are, and if we could be mind readers and make everybody comfortable every moment of every day, I don't know. Maybe we wouldn't actually, because then people wouldn't get to do it for themselves.
And where's the room for growth there?
Yeah.
Where's the room for there's no space for integration at that place at that point, because when we're saying this is a safe space and we're not going to let anybody in here that might not validate your views, then all we're doing is creating another exclusive space. And honestly, exclusivity is why we're in this freaking mess in the first place. Like, we do not need more exclusive spaces. We need more inclusive, kind, compassionate, empathetic spaces in the world. We need to understand each other's experiences, for lack of a better word, like world peace. Like, we need more challenge, but to reach and hit those challenges with respect and honesty and kindness, rather than seeing something that we don't understand and then immediately going into a judgment and immediately going into like a fear-based space that person is you don't have the same beliefs as me, so you're dangerous. That's not true. I mean, I grew up in Virginia, where I did not have the same belief system as a lot of people, and therefore I was dangerous. And I wasn't dangerous. I'm not dangerous. And so I feel like when you're hungry, you're very hungry or hot. Exactly. But it's like at some point we have to kind of be more, we have to just be a little bit more brave in life and be a little bit more accepting, even the queer community, like asking some person that if we feel safe doing so, like, that's an interesting perspective. Why do you think that is? And who knows? And we might discover something about people that might surprise us.
Well, and I want to add to that, like, we're not an exclusive space, so we do serve allies, and that is a big part of what we do, due to all of the things that Jesse was talking about. And I think that there are many who crave exclusive space due to trauma and triggers, and I think that one of the things we're doing is just offering another choice. So we believe in the power of choice, that just because you identify some way doesn't mean you should just have one place that you can go. So we do want people to kind of rip this off, you know, if they want to serve the trans community, but they want to do it with a punk rock, a punk rock spin, go for it. But I would say one of the things I was thinking about in terms of, Caden, you were asking about Jesse and not wanting to, or feeling some insecurity around serving the trans community. And I think everything has a balance, right? It's there's a double-edged sword to everything. And I think one thing that I know Jesse shared with me, and I've heard in a lot of spaces and seen, there's a big difference between being queer and trans friendly and wanting queer and trans dollars, and being queer and trans competent and wanting to serve a community. So there is, I think, a very big push and culture right now of recognizing that certain things are niche and can hold a lot of profit. I would say surgeries in particular, and surgeons who you're seeing kind of jump on the bandwagon and want to perform these very lucrative surgeries without necessarily doing their homework or serving the community in certain ways. And those are things that don't feel good. And so one of the things that we have been able to do is not only continue to educate ourselves and give back to our community through space, and we also have a Give a Cut program. So if you'd like to donate to give a haircut or hair service to somebody who cannot yet afford it, that is a program that we offer as well. But additionally is educating practitioners and providers. So hair service providers, we've done some work with restaurant communities, with clinicians. Anyone who says, yes, I want to serve this community, would you share that I'm doing this work with your community? We say, well, you need to learn how to do it right first and demonstrate that you are serving this community with the excellence and the care that they deserve before we are referring anyone. So we are strongly vetting people.
We're strongly vetting people. Anybody that we send, like if somebody says, hey, do you know a massage therapist or do you know an electrolysis? We vet those people before we actually give their information away. We make sure that they understand how to communicate and talk to and serve our community before we give their information.
Or if there's no one who is truly like trans competent, there's somebody we'll say, or I'll say, hey, I know this person who's doing this work, and I'll let you know they don't necessarily have all their S together.
Right.
Okay. So if you need to get something done, just go up knowing that it might not be the most, you might get dead named or you might get misgendered or whatever, but if you need this service, they will provide it.
Yeah.
But with honesty and
integrity.
Yeah.
I mean, we just gotta.
We're truth. We just tell the truth.
Yeah. We're just transparent.
We just try to tell the truth.
Right.
Where did the name come from?
Oh my gosh.
Curious. I mean, salon. I mean, of course, salon, if that makes sense. Yeah. But where'd you get Benders from?
Actually, so we, I was just thinking about this a couple of days ago. Cal actually doesn't remember when Benders came to be.
It just always was.
No, it wasn't always.
It always was.
He's poor. His memory is sometimes poor, FYI. Right. Yeah. So this is why I'm around, to keep him,
Thank the Lord.
Keep him young.
That's right.
Anyway, so I'm an avid meditator. I do a lot to meditation and energy.
Oh, you're going to have to teach me.
I would love to. I would love to. If I can learn, anybody can learn.
Because I have ADD, and so it's hard for me to sit still. And I have tried, but my mind goes in a million different directions when I try to sit there.
Well, luckily I have ADD too, so I have.
Me too.
Perfect then.
Me too. Oh, look, something shiny.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's really. You and I will have to talk about that off the air, maybe, or maybe that'll be another episode.
Yeah.
but it's, yeah. So anyway, Cal, we have a room in our house that's designated basically for meditation. And we were in there. He was working on some business stuff. This was before we knew we were going to open a salon, but we didn't have a name. And we didn't have a space. We didn't have anything. We just had the idea and we knew we were going to do it. So I was laying there and I was thinking of all these different things and I just couldn't. I was like thinking for days and days, what can we be called? And Cal, we had been on this conversation for like probably like the last month and a half about how he thought I was such a gender bender. He was like, you bend gender in ways that no one else would ever know unless they were your partner. Like you do this and this. And he was saying basically like, I look really girly, but basically most of the ways that I am emotionally and everything are pretty masculine.
Or how society would view what is masculine.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so that kept popping up and I felt like it was such an intrusion of my meditation. I was like, God, I'm like, why do you just leave already? And finally it was just like almost like a banner in my head. And it looked like a banner that you would see like on a classic tattoo. And it just said Benders. And I was like, and I literally sat up in the middle of a meditation and I was like, Benders, it's the name Benders. And he was like, yeah, that's cool. And like he was so entrenched in his own work that he was like, he didn't even download it all the way. And then so later on in the evening, I was like, what do you think? He was like, no, actually, I think it's a really cool name. So I just started trying it on. Like I put it on a little, I made a business card. I just started messing with it. And so basically what it is it's a place for people who bend society's rules.
Yeah.
Anybody that decides that they want to play in a space that is queer. And when I say queer, I'm talking about the textbook definition of queer. Anybody that wants to play in a space that's kind of queer, outside of the norm, that's what we're going to be.
And so I'm a grammar dork and I had to add a little, so the apostrophe is after the S because the space belongs to the gender benders.
Okay.
And we really wanted to, I think that non-binary identities and the erasure or erasure of gender is kind of on a lot of people's agenda, but we personally, we acknowledge and respect anyone's perspective and how they want to express it. But for us, gender is super fun to play with, and being able to have all of these rules that you're just like, oh, actually, it's like a Mr. Potato Head of, I'm going to take this piece, but not this piece, and this piece, but not this piece. Mm-hmm. And gender is a beautiful place to play and express. And genitalia doesn't have to dictate how you play with gender for it to be super fun, Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, our jam. We love gender. Yeah. We love gender when we don't feel stuck in it.
Yeah. See, I feel like a lot of this is just my personal opinion, and a lot of people will probably not like what I'm gonna say, but this is my half my hour. So, but I don't. Yeah, right. I don't believe in the erasure of gender because I love my gender so much. I love sisterhood. I love being female, and I feel like being a woman is being oppressed and being a marginalized community. And I understand that trans folks and non-binary folks and people of color all are marginalized communities. And I'm just speaking for my own experience. And it has been extremely important to me to be able to be the woman that I am and still continue to find that type of woman that I am. Being a woman that is brown, that's small, that's loud, that has lots of tattoos, that doesn't look like everyone else, and is super, super outspoken. And I have an opinion about everything. And I think that that is really, it's important to me to be I am woman, hear me roar. And I love celebrating my gender. And so in our space, we don't erase gender. We celebrate whatever your gender identity or expression is from day to day. We ask people, even though we know their pronoun, we ask them, has anything changed? Is this still the same for you? What's your name today? These are things that we ask because we celebrate these things. It's not something that needs to be swept under the rug and hushed and snuffed out and neutralized. Like, to me, whatever you are and however you show up that day should be celebrated, because I love humanity. We love people. And so wherever you are, let's celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't believe in erasure of gender either. And I'm a trans person, and I don't identify as a man. I identify as a trans man. So,
Right.
and that doesn't mean that we can't acknowledge non-binary people. I'm not saying that, but I don't think you should erase it, because it almost, in some respects, I look at it as you are erasing the people who do identify with a gender.
That's right.
Yeah. And similarly, Caden, I also identify as a man. I identify as a man of trans experience, and I am, despite what the culture around men and masculinity is right now, I am proud to be a man. I'm proud to be a compassionate man. I'm proud to be a man who's very in touch and connected with how I feel, who loves being, loves having a woman in my life that is far more outspoken than me and probably stronger. And like, if you're gonna be scared of anybody, it would be her, not me. But no, for good reason, because she's fierce and she's fabulous, and she's pretty tough, and I'm like a squishy little bear, and I love being a squishy little bear of a man, and that's how I bend gender. But I love being a man, and I love that we get to use our platform to be in love with our gender and our gender expression, and do that in whatever way we want to. I love having a beard.
So do I, even though it doesn't grow very well.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's great. Love your beard wherever it is, and love like your belly, and love like all of the stretch marks that we have, or whatever it is. It's like, let's just those are the things that we have to empower to change.
That's the revolution. That's the revolution. And we can play games where we just talk about how terrible our lives are, and these things are real. Okay. These things are very, very real. Trans women, particularly trans women of color, are being murdered at alarming rates. Trans men are killing themselves at alarming rates. Like I'm not saying that everything is perfect and fine. I'm saying that we live in a beautiful, privileged place where I can be out as a trans man and feel, for the most part, safe. It's just,
we think it's important to talk about both stories.
Yes.
We think it's important to talk about, yes, there are people, there are women's reproductive systems that are being taken over right now. There are people essentially in concentration camps. There are terrible things that are happening in this world right now that everybody knows about, because all you have to do is open up your freaking news feed. All you have to do is turn on the TV. It is everywhere, and it's impossible not to see it, and it's impossible not to talk about it and not to be affected by it. And all I'm saying is that, where do we go for the little tiny bit of solace? Where do we go for a little tiny bit of a hug, or something that feels positive? Because if we completely fixate on everything that's going wrong, all we're going to do is start to vibrate on that frequency. And we are going to think that there is nothing good out there. But that's not true, because there are trans women that are doing amazing things. You want to know why I know? Because I work with them every single day. There are trans women of color. There are trans men. There are queer women of color and queer folks all over the place in our community that are doing really amazing things, and their amazing things are really important. That message is having a model of saying it doesn't all have to be that way, and it doesn't always end up that way. There are people, that are lucky enough to be living in California that are able to do, go to school and do all of the things that they want to do. So I mean, I feel like I'm going to be like the mayor of Long Beach or something. Come to Long Beach, whatever you want here. But like, truly,
I vote for you.
Thank you.
I would too.
True. Thank you. But truly, I feel like this place has changed my life in ways that I can't even describe. And if I were to hear somebody at a young age say, hey, you can change your life, you can get out of the place that you are in, I know it might feel impossible, but there are other options for you. If I would have heard that earlier, I would have probably left home earlier. I didn't leave home until I was 26 years old. And I was too scared. I thought that big old world out there was going to chew me up and spit me out, just like every person told me that it would.
Well, and there's really big, like, there are, with differences in opportunity, there are skill gaps, or there are opportunity gaps that need to be adjusted. So seeing a role model of someone, like, I know Caden and I, we spoke over the phone before connecting, and we were talking about representation and how I met my first trans man that I was knowledgeable was a trans man, and he was in a role that I really identified with. But it is a process of becoming that. So if I've never had a model for that, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, shoot, I can do that too. That's really powerful, but that's a jumping off point. It's not just I can do that too. And if I take testosterone, then I'm going to be successful and know how to have a relationship with a woman as a man, and how to navigate the world as a man, and all of these things. I don't know how to do that, so I need my community to uphold me and support me, and I need, I think that social support in transition, whether it's a gender transition, a professional transition, age transition, health like all of these things, being able to support each other and talk through how it actually happens is just incredibly powerful.
I completely agree. So for me, I remember, just to talk a little bit back about what Cal and I talked about on the phone previously, was that when I met a trans guy a trans person in general, not just a trans guy, but just a trans person, I was like, holy crap, I'm not the only one out there. And, just being able to have that support system through my transition so far has been phenomenal, because I, like a lot of trans people, did not have a very warm, fuzzy feeling coming from my family. They more or less kind of just disowned me, other than my dad's parents. And even though they have not disowned me, they have struggled with the transition. And so it's a lot to do with why I started the podcast, was to provide a space where, like you, the three of us could talk about these things, and other people hear it and not feel like they're all alone out there.
Yeah. And other people hear it that might have opposing views. Like, I hope that your family hears this amazing, amazing thing that you're doing. You are so brave and so incredibly awesome for standing up and saying, like, I hear you. I know that you disagree with me, but I'm doing this thing. And your existence is super valid. Not only are you not the only person out there that is like you, but like, you're one of the most amazing humans in general for starting something that you want to start. Like, how cool is that? Like, there are people out there that dream about having their own podcast or dream about having their own business that never actually do it.
That's
and
true.
You are. So regardless of being trans or not, I hope that your family hears this, and in some way, somehow, they can feel proud of you, because it's really cool what you're doing.
Well, my grandma's listening. So
good. Hey, grandma.
Yeah, that's a plus, because she is my best friend. They raised me most of my life, and it has been a struggle for her, because she still sees me as her little grandbaby and little girl, and but she's coming around the corner. We had a talk. I'm getting married to the love of my life in December.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And a little over a year ago, I sat my grandma down after I proposed and basically said, I need you to get on board with this by the time I get married, because I didn't want to hear my birth name and hear the wrong pronouns. And I have to say, she corrects herself now when she screws it up. And I think it does help that I have a very supportive grandpa that has, he took a little time in the beginning, but for the most part, he is doing extremely well and corrects her. And so, yeah, I hope so. She hasn't really said anything to me about the podcast yet, but I'm sure.
Maybe this will be the gas pedal for her.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure she hasn't listened to very many of them either, though. So
yeah.
Well, I just want to say, I mean, for every family member who is a part of someone's transition, who might struggle, it is a transition, and this is a process. And for every trans person who thinks that once they transition, we're encouraged, and in some states forced, to be in talk therapy before we start our medical transition, but not after. And for anyone who starts their transition and doesn't immediately feel incredible and like they know exactly how to navigate this new gender, like, I think both experiences of transition, there's no shame in it. It is a lot to navigate. There's a lot of ideas that we have to undo and redo. And just because it doesn't feel comfortable doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean you're not trans enough, doesn't mean you're not an ally enough, doesn't mean you're not right where you're supposed to be. So I just want to acknowledge everyone who's out there who might not feel completely at home in their body or with their family member or in their presentation. It's okay, and each and every one of us struggles with that. Trans, cis, queer, straight, like all of us,
and the same for people's family members too. Like, it's okay not to know exactly how to support your trans family member or friend right off the bat, but I feel like the best thing to do is just try to tap into that deep love and compassion that every person has for, well, not every person, but that I'm sure that everybody can find.
Everyone has access.
Everybody has access to compassion, and like, ask kind questions and be very open to being redirected. Be very open to being challenged. And I will tell you, the most beautiful experience for me has been challenging what society has taught me. I see the world now, instead of seeing it in black, gray, and white, I see it as a prism of colors now. And I don't assume anything anymore. And you feel like you know everything all the time until you realize that there is a whole new way to look at the world that is so much more colorful than you were ever looking at it before. And to me, for all of the people out there that do believe in God, or that have, deep Christian, Southern Baptist, or whatever, religious belief systems, like, to me, it's how God would see us. It's how God actually sees us, is this beautiful array of color and love. And so it's really like bringing you closer to what's actually real.
I can
is by
agree.
Seeing us how we are.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know we've touched on it some, but tell us some of the other things that you do at Salon Benders besides cutting hair.
We do whatever we want. We are Salon Benders is the salon, and Benders Collective is the umbrella of everything that happens community wise outside.
So we've done bicycle maintenance work. We do a group bike ride. We've had coffee with the doctors, which is actually some endocrinologists have come in, and we're going to do a series of of meetings like this, but they come in and people can ask the endocrinologist things. Parents can come and talk and have an open kind of forum with a doctor that says, like, is this safe for my child? And what are the pros and cons of, being on hormones and not being on hormones? And we have
did a femme hairstyling
class. Yeah.
We have a queer book club that meets
Once
every
a month.
And we've hosted a number of things that folks say. We did a really cool pop-up where we hosted 19 queer owned businesses, mostly handmade goods or
jewelry and shoes and yeah. So,
some nonprofits and some amazing, like, what we're trying to do is just, we have a beautiful space that's transformable. So if people want to host their thing with us, as long as it's serving the community and serving it with excellence,
we open up the space for them.
Yep. So it could be anything, really.
Yeah. So the collective just basically, we've done so many things, we couldn't even list them all off right now, but like that, those are some of the things that we've done and some of the more recent things. But anything that anybody has or wants to hold in the space, we ask them about it. We ask them to tell us about their passion, how long they've done it. And it's kind of a bit of a vetting process. And then we say, okay, well, great. You can hold
just support them.
We support them. Yep. We will host it on our website. We'll host it on our social media. And then we just kind of let them do their thing in the space.
Was that your intention when you started it, or to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
That
our intention is a greater vision of ultimately holding as many resources under the same vision and mission. And the hair is what we know how to do.
Well, that's how we keep the doors open. So we are not a nonprofit, but the way that we pay the bills and we provide the space for people is by doing hair. And so we have access to some things that even the LGBT center they don't have access to community wise, because we do have a for-profit model. So
Gotcha.
that kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
It's less of a sterile environment. In the LGBT center is amazing, and thank God for them. Thank goodness for the things that they do, but there are some like gaps and spaces that they can't do because it is such a,
if you're grant funded or
Right.
federally funded, and that's one of the things we're trying to do is actually have a different kind of business model where literally when you are spending money with your community, you are literally giving back to your community.
giving back.
Yeah.
And so that is, while we do strive to keep costs low, it does subsidize community work. So every dollar that is spent is supporting somebody else.
Yep. Like recycled.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I work in the nonprofit world, so I know how that works. So
it's tough, and it's
Yeah, it
important, valuable work.
It is.
And it is one arm that it can look like. And again, this is about choice and having different options. And that was an option that wasn't personally working for me. So
it's tiring.
Do something different.
It's exhausting.
It's a lot. Because ultimately everything is about the bottom line. Everyone has to keep their lights on and the doors open.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's an assumption that if it's a nonprofit, well, we shouldn't have to pay, but they still have to pay their people, and they still, it's. But we just wanted to be able to talk about the money, that it's crazy expensive. Like it's
all of the things. Everything is expensive.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
I work for a clinic that takes care of people who have HIV and AIDS. So, and we just lost a lot of our funding. So they actually just laid off 55 people.
Oh, see, and that doesn't just hurt
devastating.
You, but it hurts the patients.
Yeah.
It hurts their families. It's like this trickle down effect that like really affects everyone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was, needless to say, it was a stressful month that it was going on, because you weren't sure if you were next. And I think at least where I work, I think people who go into nonprofit go into it because they have a desire to help, and they typically go for a nonprofit that they believe in the mission for. So it's hard when you have all this desire and want to help, and then, you know, you can't stay because there's, you know, money's not coming in like it should. And I think you're right. People just think that nonprofits exist without any money. And it's like, I do have to pay my bills every month.
Yeah,
and, you know,
exactly.
Yep. And that, and you have to, and whoever's paying the rent on that space, it has to still pay the rent and buy the office supplies and
this is a whole nother conversation, but I will say one of the other things that we do want to change the culture on is the belief that, you know, why is it okay if you're 15 years old and you make a video game that makes you $5 million, you can get on the cover of Wired magazine and everyone's really stoked for you. But if you make 50 grand a year trying to cure cancer, you are like, you're the scum of the earth. You know, what is, we place value, and money is one of the ways that we place value. So I'm not saying that we're trying to get rich. In fact, we're just trying to make sure we're not even close. But we do, you know, I would really love to be able to have a space that could make enough money so that every one of our employees could have healthcare. And we're not in that place yet. But we have a business model that hopefully will serve that ultimately, because we believe in taking care of people on all fronts, emotionally, socially, physically, and financially is a part of that. Money is very real and impacts people's lives. So
without a doubt.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to finish on is what your future goals for Salon Benders are.
Oh yeah,
that's a great question.
I'm you.
We love
you want the 10-year, 20-year, 30-year plan.
We have a lot of plans, but I think ultimately our main goal is to continue to grow and be sustainable, and just continue to talk about this work that we're doing. I would love to come up with a program that helps to like a training program that everyone can take, whether they are in California or not, that helps to talk about LGBT hair and hair matters, and how we can actually help hairstylists and everybody, but I particularly am invested in the hair world.
Start with what we know.
Start with what we know and excellence. And I would really, so I think my next goal is to kind of come up with some kind of training module that will help hairdressers all around the world be able to serve this community better and with more integrity. And ultimately just keep doing what we're doing, and we're letting Benders grow. Like Benders has grown, like it does what it does. It's its own thing now. So however it decides to grow, we're just going to kind of lean into it and see what the community wants to do. We're really, really community oriented.
It's community driven.
It's community driven.
We're not going to put anything on that the community doesn't ask for, because they don't show up if they don't.
Exactly. They won't show up.
They don't ask for it, they won't show up.
That's true. So we're just going to continue to keep our doors open as long as we possibly can to see what will flourish. I think that it will do its own thing. Yeah, I really do. So
yeah, I think so too.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
I hope somebody in Florida around me decides to do it with you.
Yeah.
Tell him to give us.
I would do it, but I can't cut hair. So
yeah, well, you know what? It's okay. Like it is totally. I think that a lot of people will be able to benefit from the things that we would teach. I think Cal teaches all sorts of people, teachers and clinicians, and so I just feel like in the hair world, I would just really love so much to, talk to your hairstylist about this and see if they would be interested.
Yeah, I will.
If your hairstylist would ever be interested in taking a course like that. Just like I would love to get some feedback and to see if there would be other hairstylists out there that would be even interested in doing something like that.
Yeah, I will. And I'll let you know for sure. She's on maternity leave right now. She's her first baby.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good for her.
cool. She's probably got a bunch of shaggy clients
Yeah.
waiting for her to come back.
It was funny because I just saw her about 3 weeks ago, and I usually get my hair cut every 3 to 4 weeks because my hair grows like weeds.
Yeah.
And I told her, because I knew there was no way she was going to have the baby before I was going to be able to see her again. I said, and I won't go to anybody else because I'm really anal about my hair. And
Yep,
so,
most people are.
so I told Jerica, my fiance, I said, you're going to have to shave my neck because she's not going to be back until like sometime mid-April or mid-August, not April, mid-August.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's fine, I'll do it. And I keep pushing her the last couple of nights. I'm like, come on, you got to touch this up. I look like a fool in the back.
It's time. It's time. Yep. Well, if you need any help, send us a FaceTime.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll hook it up.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. And I know that, we have a 3-hour difference in our time. So I do appreciate it.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Yes, thank you. It's been very fun to talk with you, and we hope that I'm excited to have created a friendship across the
Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Transcasters, that's all we have for you this week. Thank you for listening, as always, to this week's episode of Transcaster Radio. Don't forget to tune in next week for another great episode. Until next time, love life, live authentically, and as always, rise up.
Thank you for listening to Transcaster Radio. Be sure to visit transcasterradio.com to access the show notes and discover awesome bonus content.